So I finished this island offline. I remember it's step 6, and it was not without adventures. First of all, I don't know why the manufacturers, my first experience was with Trumpeter, and now with Hobby Boss, they simply cannot match the diameter of the holes with the diameter of the pieces they are supposed to enter those holes. In the case of Trumpeter, the holes were always too small, and in this case the holes are too large. Is this a made in China symptom? I don't know. I don't know. And then I installed these two photo etches, two covers, two blinders, I would say, each side, and that too wasn't without adventures, but that was completely my fault and my lack of skill. So I think, of course, this piece, this is the way they show it in the instructions, but in reality the island will stay like this on the ship. Yes, this was step 6. Interesting. So how about the ships? I said many times in this series I'm not that much interested in modeling the ships, but it gives me an opportunity to talk about these ships and to try to keep their memory alive for as long as humanly possible. So what's so special about these two ships, Lord Nelson and Agamemnon? Well, compared to what was before them, they were more powerful. Remember that there was another class of semi-dreadnoughts, the King Edwards in the Royal Navy, the 11 battleships of the King Edwards class, having the usual 4 12-inch guns and 4 9.2 guns, and by comparison, these Lord Nelsons, they have the usual 4 12 inches, but they had 10 9.2 inches guns. So indeed more powerful punch than the King Edwards. Compared to what was to come after them, they were not as powerful, of course, because in parallel to them, the Dreadnought, the HMS Dreadnought, was building. Now, if you look at the dates, the Lord Nelson started to build May 18th, 1905. In the same week when prefabrication work started simultaneously for HMS Dreadnought. But Dreadnought was only laid off in October 1905. But a lot of prefabrication started in May. And then Lord Nelson was completed in October 1908. It was greatly delayed, both ships were greatly delayed by the construction, by the advent of HMS Dreadnought. Even the turrets and the guns, the 12-inch turrets and guns intended for Lord Nelson and for Agamemnon were, of course, used on the Dreadnought. They were exactly the same turrets and the same guns as for the Dreadnought. So Agamemnon and Lord Nelson waited until Dreadnought was ready, and until even the first class of invincible battle cruisers were kinda ready. And of course Dreadnought was built between October 2nd, 1905, October 3rd, 1906, and you can look at these dates and see that between late 1904 and mid 1908, except Dreadnought, nothing in terms of battleships or battle cruisers came out of the British yards. That importance, so much importance was attached to the Dreadnought that pretty much everything else kinda stopped to see how Dreadnought would behave. Now everybody knows that Dreadnought was a revolutionary design, and we keep saying the most powerful ship at her time, and a lot of punch in artillery and this and that. What really makes a battleship a Dreadnought type? Well, there are the three characteristics. The speed should be at least 21 knots. The propulsion with turbines, and uniform main armament, at least 8 or even better 10, 12, 14, 12 inches guns. This was basically the first generation of Dreadnoughts for all the navies. In the Dreadnoughts, within the Dreadnoughts, I include the battleships, the BBs, and the battle cruisers, the BCs. And not all the Dreadnoughts actually had these characteristics. For example, the first two classes of German Dreadnoughts, the Nassau class and the Helgoland class, they didn't have turbines. They didn't get to 21 knots. They were between 19 and 20.5 knots. Still, because of their main armament, like I think 10 or 12 inches, they are classified by everybody as Dreadnoughts, and so on. Now, of course, the size matters. The size matters, and while Lord Nelson was 135 meters long, Dreadnought was 160 meters. And in terms of displacements, Dreadnought was kinda 15 to 18% more heavy than the Lord Nelson class. This is about the size. The draught is pretty much the same, and the beam not very different. I think now we have to take a look at the armor scheme of these two ships, the Lord Nelson and the Dreadnought. Keep in mind they were built pretty much in the same time, but with quite different armament and quite different technologies. About the main belt armor of these ships. First of all, you can see here I have the Lord Nelson on the left side and the Dreadnought on the right side, and I can show you that this central part of the two ships, which is called the casemate, is protected at the lower level by this main belt armor, which in the case of Lord Nelson is shorter, because the casemate, the critical area of the ship was defined between the first and the second turret. And in the case of Dreadnought, was more extended, was longer, because the casemate was included the four turrets in here, in the midship, and then the first and the last turret. So necessarily it was a longer area to be protected. Lord Nelson has a bit of thicker main belt, 12 inches, compared to the Dreadnought at 11 inches. I don't think that would have been a great disadvantage for the Dreadnought, because they were both supposed to fight German ships, which at the time the Germans stick with the 11 inches guns. So a main belt, either 11 inches or 12 inches, would have perhaps done the job anyway. We can see the main armor for main belt for Lord Nelson is 4 inches, which is precisely what Dreadnought also has. You have a bit of a chunk of armor here on the side of the barbets. Underneath the turret we have the barbets of 8 inches, which is precisely what Lord Nelson has. You have an upper side of the main belt at 8 inches, which is again precisely what Lord Nelson had. Going to the forward of the ship, you have this small chunk, small area of armor, 9 inches for Lord Nelson, precisely 9 inches in Dreadnought. Again, the 8 inches continues. And then forward, we have a uniform 6 inches for the Dreadnought, but a combination of 4 and 6 inches for Lord Nelson. Let's look a bit at the turrets. The sides of the front of the turrets and the barbets, they were 12 inches for Lord Nelson, only 11 inches for Dreadnought. Very interesting. And is the same for all turrets. And I think on the roof of the turrets was something like 3 inches. No, it was a 4 inches. It's marked 102 here, but I can see it's a 76. Maybe it's a 3 inches for the roof of the turrets for Lord Nelson, and it's also 3 inches for the roof of the turrets of the Dreadnought. Interesting enough, both have these 13 inches at the back of the turret. I don't have an explanation for that. But up to now, the main areas, the turrets and the main belt, they are strikingly similar to from a Dreadnought to Lord Nelson, with the exception of this forward part here, where Lord Nelson has a combination of 4 and 6 inches, and this one has only 6 inches all around. We have for Lord Nelson, for example, we have this the main deck, which starts here with 38 millimeters and continues at the higher level here, 19 millimeters, only 3/4 of an inch in the island area. And then for the dreadnought, we have A. A is the main deck, is this line here, 20 millimeters instead of 38, but then it goes to the same, actually 0.75 inches, 3/4 of an inch, that's 19 or 20 millimeters like the Lord Nelson. So in terms of main deck, I would say Lord Nelson is better protected in the forward part of the ship, a bit better protected than the Dreadnought. Now in the armor deck, which is the most important, we have for Dreadnought, we have 1.5 inches the forward part, and then another 175 inches sloping to 275 towards the edges. And for Lord Nelson, we have only, I would say, 1 inch. I don't know which is, what's that, what's this 38 here? I don't know about this one. But this one, I think, is this one, and that was discussed. I think the 25 inches is the real armor deck for Lord Nelson, 25, 25, and then in the middle, also 25. While Dreadnought in the middle was having something like 38, I think, 175 inches. Be it as it may, 1 inch in horizontal protection, being 1.5 or 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch or almost 2 inches, it wouldn't have mattered against plunging fire. The way it almost happened for the battleship Fuji, remember when we discussed this one in the building of the Tsarevich, how the Fuji, the Japanese Fuji, was bombarded from with plunging fire from the Port Arthur batteries or from Port Arthur fleet, and it was greatly, damaged and almost exploded because those ships didn't have much horizontal protection. The plunging fire was almost impossible at very short ranges, like 5,000 to 8,000 yards or 5 to 8 kilometers or something like this. Plunging fire would start to manifest itself at more than 10 kilometers. And these decks, both for Lord Nelson and for Dreadnought, wouldn't have protected these ships against plunging fire. So if you go to Wikipedia or in other sources, they keep saying that the armor scheme of the Dreadnought was better than what Lord Nelson had. I'm looking at these diagrams here, and I'm not so sure this is true, especially in the horizontal protection, especially against plunging fire at long ranges. And if Lord Nelson was not quite designed and intended to fight at long ranges, more than 10 kilometers or so, or 8 kilometers or so, the case of Dreadnought is more serious because it was not very well protected, but it was designed, it was supposed to fight at more than 10 kilometers with no protection, almost no protection against plunging fire. This is my conclusion after seeing both of these diagrams.